Are Charalampos, Kostoulas and Stefanos Tzimas ready to start, ready to come in to the Brighton squad after having been out for so long? Welcome to Seagull Central. My name is Adam MacDonald. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video, listening to this podcast, and welcome back to those who have been here before. As always, as I say, if you find yourself coming back to this channel, if you want to be part of the fastest growing Brighton fan community out there on social media, hit that subscribe button, get in the likes, get in the comments, get involved in this channel. I really, really appreciate it. We are on that road to 3,000 subscribers. I thank you to every single one of you who has already signed up to this channel. Really, really means a lot. Right, let's get into it. So, obviously we haven't seen Charalampos Costalas. We haven't seen Stefanos Tzimas in a proper competitive game. To be fair, I was about to say we've not seen them in a game, but we have actually seen... we haven't seen, have we? We've seen Stefanos Tzimas in 5 minutes to the end of the game against Wolfsburg in the behind closed doors game. We've not seen either of them kind of in the flesh in first team games so far this season. I think there was a real expectation maybe when they signed that they would be competing, particularly after we sold João Pedro. There'd be an expectation that they would be competing from the off. There's that fella, the Greek journalist on Twitter, who was convinced for weeks after weeks when they weren't playing in New York and they weren't playing at Southampton. It was like, they're going to play in this game, they're going to play in this game. Well, they've not actually played in any game yet. And we're probably not going to see them. Look, Stefanos Tzimas maybe looks like he's a little bit further ahead than Kostoulas, having obviously come on, and being originally named on the bench in the Amex friendly against Wolfsburg, then being taken off. But he actually did play a few minutes in the behind closed doors friendly. But they're at a similar level. And we've not seen either of them, which is a shame. I think these guys need to get up to speed quickly, and maybe it says something about their progress, actually, that they maybe are a little bit further ahead even than someone like Tom Watson, who we haven't seen any of him. We haven't seen him for the first team. We haven't seen him for the under-21s. At least we're now seeing Charalampos Costalas in the under-21s. For those who don't know, the under-21s played a game against West Brom on Sunday and beat them 4-0 at the American Express Elite Football Performance Centre in Lansing. And they both played around 30 minutes, came on around the 60-minute mark or so and saw out the game. And let's get into what happened. Let's get into my assessment of where they are, how ready they look, and what we should really expect, what's realistic to expect, what as fans we're kind of craving and what we're wanting, and kind of where our attack generally is, having obviously seen the Albion on Saturday and the options that they have. So, what else? So they both came on at the same time. They both had a similar amount of time on the pitch. They both had the exact same amount of time on the pitch, actually, is what I should say. And they both looked very bright. One thing I will say, they both looked very fast. They looked very nimble and pacey. In my mind, for some reason, like Kostoulas was more of a mobile striker. He can play across the front line. It's very forward thinking and just like bang, rapid. Whereas I'd kind of assumed Tzimas was a little bit more of your traditional kind of stocky centre forward, a bit like your Ferguson. Now, that certainly is the case. I think you'd say that Kostoulas is probably a little bit more nippy and zippy. However, I was shocked at the speed of both of them. Obviously, particularly Kostoulas, I would say, but actually Tzimas as well. Both rapid players, both really bright, really sharp, getting forward, running at players, really good at keeping the ball. Kostoulas was involved in one of the goals that was scored, where he kind of had a bit of a shot and it bounced off, and Brighton were able to score from that. I think they both looked good. Look, at the end of the day, it's under-21s football, and they didn't play that many minutes. But I thought they looked a lot much more kind of striking than I had kind of expected. I maybe hadn't almost. To be honest, I'm kind of hoping that particularly Kostoulas is going to be one of those kind of players, a bit like Enciso was when he burst through. Obviously, a very different type of player, but in terms of that, yes, he'll have that rawness, but it's like I want to get shot to it. I want to run at players. I want to be exciting. I think you can see that in both of them. There's a real hunger there with them. But I thought they both played well. You got to remember, to be fair, that I think Kostoulas played his last game in like early April. Tzimas got an injury and played his last game in like mid-March. So we're talking like, a good, what's that, kind of 5 months, 4 months since they've played proper competitive football. So it's been a long period for them. And I think that probably is why they've had a much slower integration process, because clearly these players weren't fit when they signed for the Albion. They were nowhere near fit, weren't ready to start a season, let alone a Premier League season where they're completely stepping up their level of fitness. And let's be honest, in the Premier League, they need to turn it up a lot more. But they look good. Look, playing half an hour is no mean feat. It shows that you're obviously building up your minutes. I think they're playing against Blackburn on Friday night. So I imagine they'll be part of the squad for that as well. I don't think we'll probably see them. We're obviously not going to see them against Everton away at Hill Dickinson, but I do wonder whether we might see, I was wondering whether we might see them against Oxford United away, which is a week on Tuesday. And I was thinking, maybe we won't if they're going to play at Blackburn on Friday. But actually, to be honest, if they're playing on Friday night, maybe they get 45 minutes, maybe 60 minutes on Friday night. Maybe they will be able to kind of play a part in that Oxford United away game. And it's a bit of a leveler for them. It's a bit of an introduction. It's a nice introduction to English football. It's a not massively high stakes game, as we always know with those kind of, those. I always got quite good memories of those Carabao Cup second round games when it's always in the summer. They're quite the crowds are always quite low. It's never massively kind of, eyeballs aren't really on these games as much. You think back to I remember Cardiff away I went to a few years ago. Obviously we had Crawley last season where Matt O'Reilly got injured in his first game just days after signing. But I think that probably provides a good opportunity. But I think the club will prioritise them maybe playing on Friday against Blackburn Rovers. Do I think they're ready? I think they look ready to play a part. And I think what we're seeing is that probably in a month's time they will be involved in our Premier League squads. They will be coming off the bench. They will be providing us with different options. And I think after what we saw obviously against Fulham on Saturday, I think we do need more of a focal point. We do need more of a number 9 to come in. And I think Tzimas does feel like he's clearly in that role. I think Tzimas is a player who, in my eyes, maybe is a little bit more ready to go. Maybe he's a player that we will see maybe a little bit more in the Premier League as a consistent option as the number 9, being supported by Welbeck and obviously Rutter. I think what we saw on Saturday that Rutter needs that support a little bit more. He's best when he's in the number 10 position, running at players with a striker to bounce off, to feed off, to link up with. And I think that thing with Matt O'Reilly at the moment isn't really working. And obviously seeing Rutter as the 10, I just don't think it plays to his strengths in the way that we really want Rutter to kind of be in that space in behind, creating chances, dribbling at plays. You don't get that opportunity when you're the last man up against their defence as he did when he played against Fulham on Saturday. So, yeah, I think Tzimas will probably have more of a role to play this season if I had to kind of bet. I think what's interesting as well is that I've heard a lot of, after it was kind of after we saw, obviously, after the game, when all of the conversation came in around the game, and I think the club must have put some stuff out about the game, I've seen a lot of people's comments about how we've spent best part of 50 million quid on these two players and they're playing in our under-21s. One guy was going, what are we doing spending all this money to just have players who kind of can't even cut it in the Prem? And I think you've got to make no mistake about this. These players aren't playing in the under-21s because they're not ready for the Premier League. They're playing in the under-21s because they're not fit, and they're not ready for the Premier League because they're not fit. So it's not that we deem them to be of a level where we need to play them in the under-21s. We need to give them minutes. And we could have given them 10 minutes at the end against Fulham, but it's a bit of a risk, isn't it, for players? And actually, you don't really want to give players who are so young their Premier League debut where it's so intense. You don't want to give them their debut when they're not fit, when they're not ready, when they're not primed. And actually, I think for these players, we've got time, we've got a lot of players, we've got a lot of depth, we've got an attacking stacked options in terms of their depth. We can afford to play them in a few under-21s games in August before we really get into the cut and thrust of September, maybe after the international break. And I think we might look back in 6 months' time and even forget this period happened, because if it's best for their development, it's best for their development. And who knows how they're going to look towards for the rest of this season? Who knows if one is going to nip their head in front of the other and kind of become more involved. I suspect Tzimas might be that option, but I really don't know. All I can say is that from this game, I think they both look very good. They both look sharp. They both look bright. They both look hungry. They both look like they wanted to get involved as much as they could. They both were absolutely getting involved in the attacking play. I would say they both did look like a cut above, and you've got to think these guys are similar ages, if not slightly younger than some of the players that are playing in these matches for the under-21s. At kind of 18, 19 years old respectively, these guys are a little bit younger than some of the players. Obviously, there'll be some players at that age, but a lot of them will be a little bit older as well. And I think you're seeing players who clearly are prodigiously talented, who have commanded a massive fee. And I think we'd love to see a bit more of them. I'd love to know a little bit more about what kind of Tom Watson's saying. When are we going to see him? Because I think the option he can provide as a kind of backup to Mitoma would be really useful, and we want to kind of mix things up a little bit. So, yeah, it was interesting to watch them. I thought they both played well, and I thought it bodes well. I think their plan now for the next few games makes sense. Hopefully, we'll see them in the Carabao Cup. Who knows? But I would argue in the next month, in the next 2-3 weeks, we're going to see them. Maybe for Man City, one of them or both of them might be involved in some capacity on the bench. I would imagine that would be what the club are kind of earmarking. So, look, let's see. I think positive signs. The fact we're seeing them get minutes, the fact we're seeing them get involved, in attacks and helping set up chances and goals, I think is really impressive. So, yeah, massively, massively positive. And let's see. We got a few more weeks until we might see them in the Premier League, but we can kind of deal with that, can't we? Anyway, let me know in the comments. Are you disappointed that we've not seen them yet? Are you one of these people that's a bit maybe angry that we've bought players that aren't primed and ready? Where do you think they're going to sit in this squad going into this season? Are they going to have a massive role to play? Are they going to have bit part roles to play? Are we going to even have to send them out on loan? Are you concerned that they're not ready? Are you concerned that Tommy Watson's not ready as well? How do you feel about the situation? Let me know in the comments. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please smash the like button. If you've got this far in the video and you find yourself coming back to my channel, hit that subscribe button. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on the next one. And as always, up the Albion.